I need a little help making sure that the camera is pointing at where I'm actually doing problems. I'm getting, I don't know if it's lazy, but I'm just getting out of practice of making sure that what I'm doing is being recorded, and it's so like I leave the camera focus right here, but I'm working something over there, so it's not recording what I'm doing. Okay. You can graph any way you want, but the best way to graph is put it in slope-intercept form. That will always be your best bet to solve for y. That is going to be the bread and butter that is going to be necessary after this class to understand how equations work. We don't want to plug in numbers. We don't want to make tables. We want to recognize equations and know exactly what the graph is going to look like and just be able to pick out of the equations everything we need. Slope-intercept form, and right here, here's the clue. In the next question, hey, I should be using this over here. And you're even going to see it again. Little transparency when you take your test. There are 4 questions on your test where you're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. Why isn't that supposed to be? And then the next 4 problems, you're going to do graphing. So that first set of 4 questions right there gives you a clue about what you should be using when you do the next set of 4 questions. Okay. So I got 20x plus 15y equals 75. Now, I've taught a lot of this, and I've taught at this level a lot of this. And I know after reading a lot of what you have written to me on that first day of introductions. And so you have a lot of anxiety about that. I get it. I've been able to turn a few people over to the away from the dark side of math to the light. Not everybody. Not everybody walks away loving math. That's okay. But I want to make your experience at least a little less overwhelming. I really do. And all I can say is you got to get over some of the anxiety. And I know that's easier said than done. It's step by step. And I will always teach step by step. When I work a problem on the board, students say, hey, I understand exactly what you're doing. That's because I'm prompting you step by step. Every time I do a step, I'm going to say, what are we doing? Now we're going to do, and so it's coming to you. When you're taking your own test, you're not hearing the prompts. You're not watching and doing at the same time. You're having to do it all on your own. You have to have that, your brain have that inner monologue. You need to prompt yourself. Maybe you need to have that squirrel in your head talking to you, or whoever you talk to in your head. Or maybe you just need to mumble to yourself. It will help. It really will help as you do the problem. Not out loud, because you don't need to bug people around you, but just kind of hear it as you do the problem. You will trigger what the next step will be. But you got to practice every time you do a problem, practice a method that will always get you to the right answer. When you go and you drive and you go to some brand new place that you've never been before, you follow directions and you get there. The next time you go to that place, you take the same route. You take the same route. You take the same route. You take, next thing you know, you don't have to look at the directions anymore. You don't have to pull up maps anymore. You know the route by heart. Everybody learned how to tie their shoes because you did it over and over and over again. You can tie your shoes without looking because it's practice. Okay. But this is math. I've gone down a rabbit hole for like the last 2 years on YouTube. I watch reaction videos to music because I'm watching reaction videos to people listening to my kind of music for the very first time. So I'm getting the chance to revisit the music that I grew up with, that is in my brain and heart and soul and everything. And I'm watching these people experience it for the first time, and they're, oh my gosh, it's like me getting to see it again for the first time through their eyes. Somebody yesterday reacted to you. Have you ever heard of the band Def Leppard? Pour Some Sugar on Me. Okay. If you've ever been to a strip club, you probably know that, but hey. The drummer for Def Leppard was in a car accident and he lost his arm. Okay. Now, the rest of the band could have gone on and said, hey, let's get somebody else. They said no. That drummer learned how to drum with one arm. He set up a whole bunch of pedals on basically at the bottom, and he plays the drums with his feet hitting the pedals, which strike the drums, as well as that one arm that he can play with. And this guy watching this video, of all the people that I've watched react to this video, he's the first person to watch the video and say, that guy's got only one arm. Nobody else ever notices it because they don't focus on the guy with one arm because it's just a song. They're not making that one arm guy like the focus of everything. But he said, hey, there's no reason why anybody should ever say that you can't do something. This guy learned how to basically drum with only one arm. And one of the biggest bands, again, in the 80s, 40 years ago. Okay. If that guy can overcome that hurdle, there's lots of hurdles that you may say, all right, it's just a matter of practice. He learned how to do that because he practiced. Okay. Same way every single time. Always a struggle to figure out where do I put the mask and the glasses so I don't cover it. So we want y equals mx plus b so we can figure out the slope and the y-intercept. That's what we're after. So we got to get this y by itself. So you have to take the 20x and put it on the right side. That's a positive 20x. You subtract 20x from both sides. On the left side, we're left with a positive, because that's a plus, 15y. On the right side, remember, we want the x and then the constant. So you're going to write the x first. It's a negative 20x, and that's a positive 75. Okay. We want y by itself. It's 15 times the y. So to undo multiplication, everybody gets divided by 15. So there's my y equals. If you can reduce the fractions, always reduce your fractions. A negative over a positive is going to be a negative. I'm going to show you how this reduces. This is 5 times 4 over 5 times 3. And then I have my x plus 75 over 15. 75 is 15 times 5. And this is 15 times 1. 15 goes into 75 5 times, goes in evenly. So now what I have here is y equals a negative 5 reduced, negative 4/3 x, and then a plus with 15 reduced, 5/1 is just 5. So there's the slope-intercept form for my line. So to graph this thing, I want the slope and the y-intercept. So I'm going to show you something here real quick. Write down my slope. So putting that little police line up, m, and then x, and then plus, and then v. Remember, the slope is just the coefficient of the x, not the x, it's just the coefficient. So negative 4/3. And then my y-intercept is the 5. Okay. What I told you on Tuesday. Slope is a negative out in front, and you have a 4/3. We're trying to do rise over run, but the negative is in front of my fraction. And that panics some people. Remember what I told you. Negative 4/3 is exactly the same as negative 4 divided by positive 3, which is exactly the same as positive 4 over a negative 3. As long as there's one negative, the whole thing is negative. So what you want to do is you want to put the negative either in the numerator or denominator so you know rise over run. If it's out in front, you might accidentally go in the wrong direction twice. Or you might go in the right direction once, but the wrong direction the second time. You just need one negative so you know what the rise and the run is. This will be my always. Again, practice, same way all the time so you have it down. When I have a negative slope, I always put my negative in the numerator. I always put it in the numerator. Because when I plot my first point, the next thing I do is rise. So if it's in the numerator, I'm either going to go up or down. The denominator is always going to be positive, so the bottom is always going to be positive. I'm always going to go right. The numerator, I'm either going to go up or down. If it's positive, I'll go up, and the denominator will be positive, so I go right. If the slope is negative, I put the negative in the numerator, so I go down, but the denominator would be positive, so then I always go right. Okay. I didn't even hear it. Okay. But I'm going to, tag along with her. But that way you don't have any confusion about what you're going to do. I always put it in the numerator if it's a negative. If it's positive, then you're going up, right, left, and going up and then right, because they're both positives. So here we go. The first thing you do is you plot the y-intercept. That's looks more like a B. The y-intercept is on the y-axis. On the y-axis. It intersects the y-axis at 5. Now remember what I told you. If there's a point on the x or the y-axis, if it's on an axis, you don't have to use an ordered pair. You can just label it with a single number. So that single number right there is just 5. Okay. So that's our starting point. That's where we're going to start our line from. We need 2 points. Now you're going to get to the next point by using the slope. The slope is directions to go from one point to the next. So we start at that y-intercept, and then we're going to count the slope. The rise is -4. So from this point, I go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the run is +3. So I go down 4, and then I go 1, 2, 3 to the right. That would be the next point on my line. Down 4 to the right 3. If the point that you're going to label is in a quadrant, not on an axis, but in a quadrant, then you have to label it with the ordered pair, the x and the y. So at this point right here, and this is the mix-up that people will do. We just went down 4, right 3. So they put 4 and 3 here because that's how they got there. When you ask for directions and they tell you how to go from one place to the next place, where you end up is not the directions how you got there. Where you end up is the address of where you are, the address of where you end up. Not go up 4 blocks, go right 8 blocks. You don't put 4 blocks, 8 blocks as your address, your location. That's the directions you got there. You put the address of where it is. The location of this point, x is 3, and the y is a 1. So you got to label it with an ordered pair. Okay. All you need is 2 points to make your line. So now you take your straight edge. Draw your line through the 2 points. Don't forget arrows because lines go on forever. Now the slope continues. If I'm at this point and I go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go to the right 3, 1, 2, 3. Look, that point's on the line. The slope continually takes us from one point to the next, and there's an infinite number of points on the line. But the slope nicely takes us to the nice numbers. It takes us to, this would be x is 6, and the y value here is -3. Okay. But there is an answer right here, where the y is a -1. There is an x that makes that happen, but using -4/3 and getting there nicely, it's not nice. It's not a nice thing to do. When y is a 0, that's an x, but it's a fraction. I'm not going to make you graph fraction. I don't want you to graph fractions. We want nice numbers. And like I promised you on Tuesday, I will make sure that your graphs come out with a nice number on the y-axis for the y-intercept and nice numbers that you can plot to. And you don't need to change the scale on the grid. Just count by ones. Okay, it'll fit. Now, if you notice, if I actually use a slope and change it to, instead of the negative up here, use this one, +4/-3. So the rise is positive and the run is negative. I would have to go up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the run is negative, so I got to go to the left group. 1, 2, and right there's 3. So the x right here is -3, and the y, this would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9. And if I continue my line, there it is. But it's not on my grid. That's why I prefer to put the negative in the numerator if it's negative. Then I go down, denominator is positive, I always go right. What do these ordered pairs represent? 20x plus 15y equals 75. This guy right here, 3, 1. X is 3, y is 1. if I let x equal a 3 and y equal a 1, 20 times 3 plus 15 times 1 is supposed to make the equation work. 20 times 3 is 60. 15 times 1 is 15. 60 plus 15, I get 75 equals 75. That's what it means to be a point on the line. It solves the equation. Every ordered pair that's on that line makes that equation work. If x is 6, 20 times 6 plus 15 times y is -3. Supposed to be 75. 20 times 6 is 120. 15 times -3, that's -45, minus 45. Supposed to be 75. 120 minus 45, 75 equals 75. Okay. There's an infinite number of answers that make this true. There's an infinite number of ordered pairs that you can plug in, and it will solve this and make 75. So if you had to sit down and write down every single set of x's and y's that make it work, you'd never finish because there's an infinite number of them. So how do we represent all the possible answers? We draw a picture. The picture represents all the answers. Okay. Number 2, here's your steps. Step 1, find the slope. Sometimes it's going to be given to you. Let me see here. Right here on the review sheet. Here's an example. It goes through this point, and hey, you got to find the slope. Voila, there it is. Slope equals, given to you. But number 6, through the points, just like this one that we're doing. So through the points, we got to find the slope. Since we have 2 points and no slope, we got to figure the slope out for ourselves. Slope is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So you're going to subtract the y's. And what I told you on Tuesday, it really doesn't matter which y you start with. That 8 or that -2. If I start with 8 in the numerator, you have to make sure you start with this x in the denominator. If you choose to start with this y, -2 in the numerator, you have to start with this x, -4 in the denominator. You can't crisscross, you can't just mix and match. Whatever ordered pair you start from, that's the ordered pair you do in the numerator and denominator both. So tell me, which one do you want to start with, the 8 or the -2? The -2, okay. So we get this -2. And you got to be really careful about your minds. You're going to subtract minus, that's a positive 8, so no worries. That's a positive 8, so minus an 8. Over, since you started with this y, in the numerator, you're going to start with this x down below. That -4, and then you're going to subtract minus, that's a -2, parentheses -2. In the numerator, -2 minus 8 is -10. Over. Simplify your signs. This is going to be -4, and that's going to become +2. So this is now -10. -4 plus 2 is -2. Simplify completely. A negative over a negative is going to be a positive slope. And how many times can 2 go into 10? 5. The slope is exactly 5. Okay. Now, find the slope. Step 2. Is it a special case? And we're going to go back to where we left off. Okay. Special case means horizontal or vertical, which means if it's horizontal, slope is equal to 0. You can't spell horizontal without an O in horizontal. Slope is 0. If it's vertical, the slope is undefined. We get a 0 in the denominator. Okay. Vertical slope is undefined. In the alphabet, U and then V. They kind of like our next two, they're holding hands. They go with each other. Undefined. Well, we didn't get 0. We didn't get undefined. So this is not a special case. Step 3. You're putting together a puzzle. You need basically to figure out M and B, plug those in, and you get the equation of the line. We just found M. But when you do a puzzle, you want to have what the picture looks like down in front of you. So step 3, just write down y equals mx plus b, because that's what you're trying to fill in the blanks with. It's just a habit I have. Plug in the first thing you found, which was the slope. Plug in the 5. Y equals 5x plus b. Almost done. We just got to figure out the b. To figure out this variable, that b, I have 3 variables right now. I have an x, a y, and a b. If I want to figure out this one, then I have to plug something in for x and y. So the next step is to solve for b, substitute an x, ax, x and y that is on the line into your equation, and you can solve for b. You're given, this is an x and y that's on the line. That's an x and y on the line. So you're just going to pick an x and a y that you can plug in here, and then you solve for the b. Okay? It doesn't matter which one you pick, since they're both on the line, you're going to get the same answer no matter what. So first one or second one, which one do you want to pick? Second one. So I'm going to use -4, -2. What that means is I'm going to let the x equal a -4 and the y is going to equal a -2. So going in for y, -2 equals 5 times x, 5 times x is -4. And then remember, you're solving for b plus b. So this -2 is equal to 5 times -4, -20 plus b. And then you, to solve for b, plus a -20, you add 20 to both sides. -2 plus 20 is positive 18. And that's your y-intercept. The last step is to write your final answer. You are supposed to figure out the slope and the y-intercept. Well, here's my slope. Here's my y-intercept. Y equals 5x. And then my y-intercept is a plus 18. And that's the equation. Here's how I know I'm right. I plugged in the -4, -2. Well, the first ordered pair, the -8, is also on this line. If I plug in this, it better work. So here's how you can check to see if it's right, because on a test, there's no back of the book to look at. You don't get to enter your answer and it tells you if you're right or wrong. If I let x equal -2, that's for a check, and y equal 8. So I plug in 8 equals 5 times -2 plus 18. That should come out true. If it doesn't come out true, then I made a mistake somewhere. 8 5 times -2 is -10 plus 18. So 8 is supposed to equal -10 plus 18. That's an 8. So when I plug in this answer, or this order pair, into the equation that I made, it comes out right. I know I did the problem correct. I have the right equation. The day we take a test, you have, on this test, I usually give you maybe a half an hour to ask any leftover questions you might have. So you would have from 9 o'clock until 10:45 to do the test. That's a lot of time. So you can say that's not time. That's a lot of time. You have time to check. Yes. No, you don't have to show me that. I'm talking that's for your own peace of mind. You know, you can walk out the door knowing you got it right. All right. So where we left off with this. These guys right here. And this was the warm-up that I posted in the announcements. Pay attention to how this is worded, because you will see, again, save reading. Oh, not that. On the review sheet right here, perpendicular to the y-axis through the point. Okay. Perpendicular to the y-axis through a point. And then look at how these are worded. You got through a point parallel to the x, through a point perpendicular to the x, through a point perpendicular to x, through a point parallel to y. I can interchange this. I could say through a point parallel to x, perpendicular to x, parallel to y, perpendicular to y. Okay, just a matter of just changing out a couple of words. But the way these are done are exactly the same way each time. Here's the deal. The x-axis and the y-axis are special cases. The x-axis is horizontal, so it's a special case, which means horizontal lines is y by itself. Y equals a number. There's no x in the equation. The y-axis is a vertical line. The y is a vertical line. A vertical line is x by itself. There's no y in the equation. So when you have the special cases here, if it's horizontal, there's really no work you can show. It's just going to be what does the y equal? If you have a vertical, there's really no work you can show. It's just what does that x equal? But the way this is worded, it's not telling you if it's horizontal or vertical. It's giving you a scenario. So the best way to do it, okay, if it's a special case, make a sketch. It'll help. So I know that this is a horizontal or vertical line because I'm being told that it's parallel to this. When we come back from breaking a little bit, parallel and perpendicular does not always mean horizontal or vertical. This means horizontal or vertical because it's parallel or perpendicular to the x or the y axis, which are horizontal and verticals. But there's another take on horizontal and verticals to come. So +3, +5 is in quadrant 1. So 3 over and then 5 up. So you're somewhere right about there, 3, 5. Parallel. Parallel means they go in the same direction and they don't intersect. So parallel lines, they look like that. The same direction, they never intersect. Parallel lines, parallel lines, parallel lines, parallel lines, okay? So if I'm going to draw a line through this point that's parallel to the x-axis. So here again is the x-axis. Am I going to draw a horizontal or am I going to draw a vertical if it's parallel? What? Horizontal. If it's parallel, it's got to go the same direction as the x-axis because it can't intersect. It's going to look like this. So now the visual helps me realize this is a horizontal line. And what I told you last week, or not, Tuesday, horizontal, that H, the H in the horizontal, kind of looks like an upside down Y. To help you remember which one is it? Is it the X by itself or Y by itself? So the H resembles, use your imagination, because you got to remember somehow. H resembles a Y, horizontal, so this is going to be Y equal to a number. And what number is the Y? It's a 5. This is just Y equals 5. That's the equation of that line. Done. Do you have to draw a sketch? No. But on a test or quiz, if you get it wrong, I have no partial credit I can give you because there's nothing I can look at. If you draw a sketch and you accidentally label it wrong or draw the picture wrong, I might be able to give you something because I can give you feedback on your test and tell you this is what you should have done. When I grade tests, it's almost like I'm grading an essay. I try to give you information back. Okay. Because not everybody is able to come in and ask questions about their test, so I'm able to give you, feedback back. Over here, through the point, perpendicular. Okay, heads up, something's coming. Perpendicular to the x-axis in a special case. If you're parallel or perpendicular to the x or the y, a special case, then your problem is a special case. So we got a special case. Option 2, we're going to make a sketch. Five, -1 is in quadrant 4. Because you go 5 to the right and you go 1 down. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1 down. 5, -1. Do you see that I label it every time? I label it for 2 reasons. Number 1, for your benefit, so you can see where I'm going, what I'm doing. But number 2, it helps me realize what my answer is going to be because I can see it. Don't take things for granted. Now, perpendicular to the x-axis. Perpendicular, it's got to make a right angle. They intersect and form 90 degrees. Okay, that's the difference. So if I'm going to draw perpendicular to the x-axis, am I going to draw horizontal or am I going to draw vertical? It would have to be vertical. To be perpendicular to the x-axis, it would have to be a vertical line. And that little box right there, remember I told you on Tuesday, that means 90 degrees. That's the symbol if you want somebody to believe you just drew a perpendicular line. So since you know that's vertical, then you know it's x by itself, x equal to a constant. And what I told you on Tuesday was vertical and the x, the connection between the vertical and the x. Vertical that b, and x is a little bit like a v that's been placed on top of a v. So that's the connection you want to make with the vertical. If it's vertical, it's x equal to a constant. When it's horizontal, it's y by itself. So here it's going to be x equals, what's the x coordinate out of these two ordered pairs? It's the 5. Done. X is always 5. Doesn't matter what y equals, x is always 5. Okay. Now, I know there's a homework problem just like C. There's a homework question that's a lot like C. Because it does not say horizontal or perpendicular to the x or y axis. It says perpendicular to x equals 3. Perpendicular to some other line. But here's the deal, it's perpendicular to this. When we have x by itself is a vertical. It's a special case. And if you're parallel or perpendicular to a horizontal or a vertical, then your problem is a special case. Anytime, every time. So this is a special case scenario. Think about it from this perspective. You would first have to find the slope. X equals 3 by itself, the slope is undefined. You can't find the slope. So we're going to make a picture. -2, -5 is in quadrant 3. You got to go 2 to the left and then 5 down. -2, -5. That's the point my line is going to go through. It's perpendicular to this line. So now I have to draw this line. This line, x is always 3. So what that means is it's a vertical line. That's a vertical line at x equal to 3. There's a vertical line right here. No matter what, if you're going to graph a line, you have to show me 2 ordered pairs. You show me 2 points. Right there, there's 1. Since it's vertical, it's another point somewhere up or above. It's got to be stacked vertically, one on top of the other. So tell me when to stop. So right here, I'm stopping at +3, -4. In order to graph a line, you've got to show me 2 ordered pairs. You got to show me 2 points. My line is perpendicular to that thing. So my line makes a right angle with that thing. It's going to go through here. If it's going to make a right angle, will it be horizontal or would it be vertical? If it's perpendicular to that red line, am I going to draw a horizontal line or am I going to draw a vertical line? Horizontal. To be perpendicular, it has to be like this. Because it has to make a right angle. That's what they just described. So this right here is describing a horizontal line. And if it's horizontal, the H hand in hand with an upside down Y. Sorry, upside down H looks like a Y. So Y equals a constant or a number. So in this problem, what is negative 2, negative 5? What is the Y value everywhere on that horizontal line? It's a negative 5. This is all you gotta do. There's my answer. Through this point, parallel, something's coming, and the y-axis, which is a special case. So if you're parallel or perpendicular to a special case, you have a special case. Cross it. Negative 3, 5 is in quadrant 2. 3 to the left of 5. So right here is negative 3. Positive 5. This is the y-axis. If it's parallel to the y-axis, am I going to draw horizontal or would I draw vertical? Because it has to go the same direction as the y to be parallel. It would be a vertical line. V is like an X on, an X on a V on top of an. The V goes with an X because an X is like a V on top of an upside down. This is X equal to a constant. So in this picture, what is the X coordinate always going to be? The negative 3. That's all you got to do. But you got to know which one is which. Is it X equals? Is it Y? How do I know? Is it horizontal or is it vertical? How do I know? I need to see it. I need to see it. I get students that don't show a picture and they're just writing down X equals because they think it is. Sometimes they're good, sometimes, most of the time they're not. Okay. I will always show you visually. Okay. Come on back at 55. But we have all the tools in place except for a little bit more about parallel and perpendicular. So we'll hit that as we do the example for the home. Number 2, find the slope of the line. Now, you can see it's multiple choice. Either the slope has an answer or it's undefined. Only time you get undefined is when you divide by 0 because it can't. If you're going to calculate the slope, you're using y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So when I plug in my slope formula here, my slope is going to be, which y do you want me to start with? The 1 or the negative 10? Good, I'll start with numbers. Negative 10 minus positive 1 minus 1 over. If you start with this negative 10, you got to start with this X buddy right here, this 8. So that X minus the other, oh, that's an 8 as well. Hello. Negative 11 over 0. You can't divide by 0. This slope is undefined. So the answer is B, because that line's vertical. If you graph it, the x's are the same. You have something here at 8. You have 8, positive 1. And then again, you have 8. And then the next point is over down here at negative 10. And they stack right on top of each other vertically. That's what's vertical. If x is the same, it's going to be vertical. Slope is under 5. Okay? Local choice. Oh, good job. I always like to pat you right on the back. Next one we're going to do is number 5. So now they're not giving you ordered pairs. They give you this equation of like x equals 2. So now, if it's y equals mx plus b, you know m is in front of the x, there's my slope. But this doesn't have an x and y, it's just x by itself. And when it's x by itself, you got to remember the x is like a v on top of a v, and v stands for vertical. And if it's vertical, the slope is undefined. Now, okay. No abbreviations. Spelling counts. Not because, hey, wait, we're doing math on but spelling counts in life. If you want somebody to understand your communications, you got to stop texting and speaking in text speak. And by the way, when you're done here, I could care less if you walk out of the room and you need to have a conversation with somebody else. But when you're doing it in the middle of what I'm trying to do, it just distracts me like nobody's business. Because all I can do is focus on the person who's doing this. Because I know they're not listening to me. Now, if people have their heads down and sleeping, well, guess what? I didn't fall asleep until 5:10 this morning. And I had to get up at 6:15. So the people who would be sleeping in here, you ain't getting no sympathy from me. Okay. Well, I have no idea. I remember I was watching fall, maybe because I was watching TV, but I was standing in front of the TV set and I'm like, oh God, I can't fall asleep. Next thing you know, I hit the TV. Okay. That's happened. I fall asleep until backwards. I put a hole in the wall with my butt, in the drywall. But I get to a certain point where I try to lie down, and the pain issues I have with my back just won't let me lie still. And I just have to get up and I have to walk. If you notice, I do this a lot. I'm trying to get in time. My pain in my back hurts so much that this is the only way I can avoid pain. But they're going to get me into physical therapy. Now, I get my first appointment, the first open February 22nd. Okay. I know it's vertical. I know the slope of vertical on the tongue. No work to show. You gotta know. You gotta know, and it's practice. Maybe you need to say it to yourself as you're doing the problem so it sticks. Okay. And we're doing number 6. Number 6, y equals -8. Hey, oh, there's no x and y. It's just y. When you have y by itself and no x, that's automatically horizontal because the y looks like an upside down H, which stands for horizontal. And the slope of a horizontal, you can't spell horizontal without O, is 0. So you know by looking at that equation, it is a horizontal line. Therefore, slope is 0. Okay, number 9. They're only asking for the slope, and they're giving us very nicely y equals negative 4x minus 7. Well, if I want slope, I'm going to try to do a police lineup of y equals mx plus b. So the slope is the coefficient of the x. So the slope is just this negative 4. Now, here's a bad habit I know some of you might need to break. I get students that want it's negative 4 and the x, they put the x with it. If I try to type in the negative 4 with the x, it's going to say I'm wrong. Negative 4 with an x. They don't like it. So I got to fix that. It's just a negative 4. And number 10. Now make sure you read and follow directions. We have y equals negative 0.2 times x minus 9.4. What's the slope? Okay. Simplify your answer. Well, in this case, it's a decimal. You're matching up mx plus the b. The coefficient in front of our x is negative 0.2. The only time you're allowed to answer with a decimal is if you're given decimals to begin with. Okay, since they're giving you a decimal, that's your answer. So number 12. So we've done some of these already when we did our graphing. Here again, all we want is the slope. And again, to find the slope, we want y equals mx plus the b. But now we don't have y by itself. So we got to solve this for y. 7x minus 8y equals 56. So to get the y by itself, you got to take 7x to the other side. Since that's a positive 7x, you're going to subtract the 7x from both sides. Remember what I told you. Make sure you bring down everything that's left over. A negative and the 8y equals, in order, negative 7x and a positive 56. Then to get positive y, you have to divide by negative 8. If you divide one term by negative 8, everybody gets divided by negative 8. Simplify your answer. So y equals a negative over a negative is a positive. So this is positive 7 over 8 times x. And then just in case you did have to do something else later with this problem, positive over negative would be negative. 8 goes into 56 7 times. So my slope, the coefficient of x is 7 over 8. Now, when you type in a fraction, there's two ways you can do it. When you click on the answer box, down here on the toolbar, you can click on the toolbar and it sets up a fraction for you. And you type 7 in the numerator, and then to get to the denominator, you use the arrows. Or you can use your mouse, or whatever, your touchpad. And then you put your 8. Or I can just use the division symbol on my calculator, a little backslash, Or the 4, so I don't know. 7 divided by 8. Okay. So number 14. Now they're just messing with it. I think during the pandemic, all the pins that were in storage here at school, they stored them straight up. So when we came back from the pandemic, they're worthless. They can't write anymore because all the ink is just gravity has helped, you know. So when I store pins, I always put them face down. I don't know that. It's just teaching trick. We need y by itself equals mx plus b. But when you look at this, x equals 11y. Oh my gosh, they're on the wrong side. It's like, I'm out. There's something called, in mathematics, the symmetric property of equality. If A is equal to B, then B equals A. It doesn't matter if you go one versus the other. You can flip it around. If 5 is equal to X, then X is equal to 5. You can switch sides. It's still equal. So I could either do this and rearrange this and put 11y equal to 1x. And write it like that. You're supposed to get y by itself, so you get your y equals mx plus b. This is multiplied by 11, so you divide by 11. So there's y equals, now this is going to need some visualization. We want mx plus b. This is x over 11. So the m, the way you write this, when you divide, you're multiplying. I talked about this last week. You're multiplying by the reciprocal. So when you see x over 11, that means it's the x divided by an 11. That's what it means. Now, division does not exist. There is no such thing as division. Division means multiplied by the reciprocal. So this is x times the reciprocal. This is 11 over 1. So the reciprocal would be 1 over 11. 111. Multiplication is commutative. I'm using lots of terminology here because math is a language. We can never make a move in math unless there is a reason that is proven true that it works. Okay? We don't make this stuff up. You don't just say, hey, you can do this just because. It must be proven true. Multiplication is commutative. If you have A times B, then that's the same as B times A. You can switch the order. 5 times 4 is the same as 4 times 5. It doesn't work with division. 6 divided by 3 does not equal 3 divided by 6. You can't change the order in division. Because 6 divided by 3 is 2. 3 divided by 6 is 1/2. You can't do division, switch around. But it's multiplication. This is the same as 111 times x. That's what you have to see here. This is y equals, what's my slope? It's 111 of x. That's what's out in front, 111. When you're dividing by 11, you're taking 111 of the x value. When you divide by 2, you're taking half, 1/2 of that out. When you divide by 3, if I had y equals x over 3, that means I'm taking 1/3 of that x value. Nobody has, the word would be balked. Nobody has panicked when I've done this. Y equals 4x over 3, and then I write it y equals 4/3 times x. Nobody has had a problem with that, right? Then picture this, y equals x over 11 as y equals, that's 1 times x, because x has a coefficient of 1, it's 1 times x, divided by 11. So when I pull that 4x over 3 and I pull the 4/3 apart from the x, so I have my slope, I can pull that 1/11 apart from the x. It's 1/11. Okay. So my slope here is 1/11 of x. 11. Now, real quick. First thing I did was switch it around because we prefer y on the left side. You don't have to. The goal is to get y by itself. Well, I can just get y by itself, divide by 11. There's y by itself. That's what this is, y by itself. And there's 1/11 times x. It's the same as just written flip-flop. And if that still bugs you, now flip y on the left, 1/11, x on the right. Okay. Either flip it to begin with or flip it later. But this is 1/11. Number 17. Okay, decimals. So you got some nice numbers there, but then you got a decimal on the right-hand side. (15x minus 5y equals 6.8). Right? Since all we want is slope, all we want is a slope, let's get y by itself. So we're going to subtract 15x from both sides because that's a positive 15x. Don't forget this negative. It's a negative 5y. Then we have a negative 15x, and that's a positive plus 6.8. Now, y by itself, everybody gets divided by negative 5. So there's my y. A negative over a negative is a positive. 5 goes into 15 3 times, so that's 3x. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. And then right here, if I take $6.80, because that's what it means, the $6.80. And if I divide by 5, well, $6 divided by 5 would be $1.20 each. Now, 80 cents divided by 5, 5 different ways, that's 16 cents more. So that would be $5.20, or sorry, $1.20 plus 16 more cents, so that would be $1.36. 1.36 negative. Or just take out the calculator and punch in 6.8 and then divide by the 5. You can use a calculator for anything at any time, as long as it's not an internet device. You subtract it, divide by 5. Okay. Now, on an hour sleep, hour 15 minutes of sleep, I'm surprised I got that right. Maybe that's what I need to do from now on, but I'm going to get it right. Okay, it's just not sleep. Because right now, I'm just like, I have 2 5-hour interviews in me. I'm just like, I'm rolling. Okay. You know that last part? It didn't matter because all they want from me is the slope. They don't want the y-intercept. They just want Mr. Slope right here. 3. But everybody panic as soon as you see the decimal. Okay. Decimals will be there. $17 and then 19. Parallel and perpendicular. Now we said parallel lines are 2 coplanar lines. Coplanar means in the same plane, and they don't intersect. But what keeps them from intersecting? First of all, make sure. Right, well, not one. The symbol for parallel is 2 lines that look like that. It's like the 2 L's in the word parallel. If you had a picture, XY axis, and in geometry, okay, you would have a picture of 2 lines, and those 2 lines might be labeled this. This is line L and this is line M. L and M. We would say that line L is parallel to line M. That's how you would write it with symbols. In the picture, it's hard to tell, do they look parallel? They look parallel, but my picture does not indicate that they are parallel. When they're perpendicular, you draw that little box. But for parallel, if you want your picture to show that you actually have parallel lines, you actually put an extra arrow that shows they're going in the same direction. If you have a couple of extra arrows showing that they're going in the same direction, you're looking at a picture of parallel lines. You never assume. Okay? Parallel lines, 2 lines that are coplanar that never intersect. When you have 2 lines that never intersect like this, what keeps them from intersecting is because their slopes are the same. Every time this might go up 2 and over 1, this has to go up 2 and over 1. They have to maintain the same rate of change. That's what keeps them from intersecting. The slopes are equal. Slopes are equal. So the first thing they're asking you here is, find the slope of the line that is parallel to the line that goes through this set of points. So you find the slope that goes through these 2 points, your parallel line is going to have the same slope as that one. Because parallel lines have equal slopes. Parallel lines have equal slopes. Parallel, the parallel, the symbol for parallel, is like a sideways equals. You got to remember it somehow. So let's find the slope. We have -6, -4, -6, 1. Y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 2. Which y do you want me to start with? The -4 or the 1? Let's start this time with this one. If I start with this y, -4, this y minus that y there, minus a 1. If I start with this y, I have to start the denominator with this x. -6 minus. That x is a +6, so minus a 6. Okay. So my slope is equal to -4 minus 1 is -5. -6 minus 6 is -12. -6, you lost $6 at the racetrack. Minus 6 more, you lost another $6 at the racetrack. You are now down $12, -$12. Simplify, because the direction's right here. Type an integer or simplified fraction. So if you type in -5 over -12, that's not simplified. What's a negative over a negative? Positive. So the slope is +5 over 12. For the parallel line would have the same slope, equal slopes. And then part B. The slope of the perpendicular. Okay. Perpendicular lines make a right angle. Now, we've done horizontal and vertical, 0 and then undefined. What makes it undefined is because the 0 goes from numerator to the denominator. It's a reciprocal. Look, we get 0 because it's a 0 over a number. We get undefined because it's a number over 0. Horizontal and verticals are perpendicular. The slopes are reciprocals. But there's one more characteristic. Perpendicular would look like this. And I'm not going to draw horizontal and vertical. Let's look at another. Here's my first line. Here's line sub 1, or my first L, my line L. And then here's my perpendicular line. So my perpendicular has to make a right angle with L. So it has to make a right angle like that. So you can have not just horizontal, vertical, but any kind of orientation of their slopes. As long as they make a right angle, they can be at any rotation. We went over this. L, and we would say line L, this is a symbol for perpendicular. Line L is perpendicular to line M. That little upside down T that looks like a perpendicular set of lines, that's the symbol for perpendicular. Okay. We describe this line as rising. What is the characteristic of a line that rises? The slope is a what? If we go up to the right, it rises. The slope has to be always positive. If it rises, it's positive. As you go from left to right, the red line, X gets bigger, Y gets bigger. So numerator over denominator is a positive over positive. The slope of a rising line is always a positive. The perpendicular, in order to be perpendicular, this blue line, L, has to look like this, which means it's a line that falls. And what kind of slope is that? Negative. Not only are the slopes reciprocal, because you can see here, horizontal and vertical, they flip, but the slopes are opposite signs. Opposite and reciprocal, both. You have to change the sign and flip the fraction. Opposite and reciprocal. Slopes are opposite and reciprocal. Now, reciprocal means you're going to flip it. So the slope of the first described line that goes through these points is 5/12. So this is how I would write. If I want the slope of my perpendicular line, then I'm going to do m, and I go with a little subscript, just so I know one from the other. The slope of my line versus this is the slope that represents my perpendicular. I put it down at the bottom. It's called a subscript. The bottom. Here's the symbol for perpendicular. This is my perpendicular slope. You don't have to do it. I'm just showing you some notation that helps. So you know which one is which, and you don't get them mixed up. It has to be the opposite, since that's positive. This is a negative. And then you flip this. It's going to be 12/5. That's it. If you know one, you know the other. No other work to do, because you already found the first one. So the perpendicular is opposite and reciprocal. Oops, I'm 12/5. 5/12. There we go. Okay, so it's 19/20. So 20 is multiple choice. Determine this given pair of lines. Are these two linear equations? Are these two lines? Are they parallel lines? Are they perpendicular lines? Or neither? Because basically are two sets of lines. They're either going to be parallel to each other, they might be perpendicular to each other, or they just intersect. They just make an intersection that's not 90 degrees. If they're parallel, they never intersect. If they're perpendicular, they intersect at a special angle 90. Or if you have two lines, the only other thing they could do is just intersect some other angle. So that would be the neither. You can tell that they're parallel if the slopes. You can tell that they're perpendicular if the slopes are opposite and reciprocal. So as I said last week, the key to everything is slope. It's all about the slope. So here, y is by itself. Y equals 8/5x plus 6. So what's the slope of this first line? Just 8/5. And the slope of this second line, y equals negative 8/5x. And there's no constant, but that doesn't matter because I just need the slope. What's the slope of this line? Negative 8/5. So one's positive, one's negative 8/5. Are they equal? Positive versus negative? No. Negative 5, positive 5 are not the same. So they're not equal. Are they opposite? Yes, but are they reciprocal? No. In order to be perpendicular, it has to be opposite and reciprocal. Both. It's just opposite. So the answer is neither. Okay. Now be careful, they don't put these A, B's, and C's in the same order every time. And then 22. Now, 20 was nice because it was written in slope-intercept form. They gave y equals on the other side, and that's plus b. So there's my m. Here, you have some weird thing looking like that, and your job is to get y by itself. So I got 6x equals 5y plus 5. And the other one was negative 12x plus 10y equals 5. I like y on the left side. So maybe what I want to do is take this one and trade places. So going over here is 5y plus 5. Going over here is 6 times x. Just I like y on the left when I solve for y. Y goes in that list.
And if you chose to put 5y plus 6x, would that change it? You could do either one.
Well, okay, 5y plus 6x? No, because if I put the 5y with the 6x, I would have to subtract 5y. It would be a different side. If the y and the x are on the same side, one of them is going to be positive, the other one's going to be negative. Because right now they're both positive. If I move x over here, I would subtract 6x and it would be a negative. If I move 5y to the right, sorry, to the left, I would have to subtract the 5y, it would be low. But yeah, you can do that. I'm just trading places because now, remember, I want y by itself. I'm going to subtract 5. So now I have 5y, 6x minus 5. And then everybody gets divided by the 5. So this is y equals 6/5 times x minus 5 over 5 is 1. And the slope of this line is 6 over 5. So here's what I'm looking for. Parallel, the other slope will be 6 over 5. If it's perpendicular, it will be negative 5 over 6. You got to flip it. And if I don't get either one of those, the answer is neither. So when I solve for y, I'm going to add 12x. I have 10y equals a 12x and then a plus 5. And everybody gets divided by 10. Make sure you simplify. Here's my y. 12 over 10. This is 6 times 2 over 5 times 2 x. 5 over 10 is 1/2. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 10 2 times. And now look at what my slope will be. The 2's reduce. Y equals 6 over 5 x plus 1/2. So the slope here is 6/5. That's a 6 over 5. That's a 6 over 5. You have parallel lines. You have to compare the slopes. That's 2, 26. I don't know what it is. Ooh. Not that. English is that. That's what I'm looking for. Off button. Okay, decimals. So I'm going to demonstrate this using this calculator on the screen. And I want to point out to you this on the review sheet. On the review sheet, there's 4 slope questions because on your test, there's 3 slope questions. Find the slope. Now, the directions up here say no decimals unless specified by the direction. Right here, find the slopes of the following pairs of points for the ordered pair that's given in decimals. Provide the final answer to the nearest hundredth. That doesn't have any decimals in it. No decimals, no decimals. So you have to read these in simplified fraction form. On the review sheet that you'll get next week, this is the one with the decimals. So this is the one you better know how to use the calculator on. So it's just like you'll have one with decimals on your test. It's just like this one, question right here. We got decimals, and you're just finding slope. So we have y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So I'm going to use 6.6 minus this y is a negative 0.4. So parentheses negative 0.4 divided by. If I start with this y, I got to start with this x. 5.1 minus, that's a negative, so it's going to be a minus of parentheses negative 6.1. Now my slope, simplify the double negatives. 6.6, that's now plus 0.4. 5.1, that's now plus 6.1. Now, if you need a calculator to do that, that's fine. If you notice the review sheet, they were given, in the hundredths place. Maybe you want to use your calculator to do it correctly. But if you think of decimals in terms of money, everybody understands it when you look at it in terms of money, so much nicer. $6.60 plus 40 cents. What do you got? That's $7. So that is 7.0. I don't need a calculator. $5.10 plus $6.10. Well, $5 and $6 is $11. 10 cents and 10 cents is 20 cents. So this will be 11.2. The final answer as a decimal, either an integer, so it comes out to be a nice like a 5 or a 3 or a negative 7, or you need a decimal. You don't want a fraction. This drives me insane. Okay. I do these problems right here, homework. I do them on the review sheet to show you how I want the answer. When you get the review sheet, on the back is the answers to the review sheet. Because there's no point in giving you a whole bunch of review questions if you don't know if they're right or wrong. That way you can know what to ask questions about. What I've had to go, I didn't know how to do the questions on the back. Those weren't questions, those were the answers to the front. To the decimal problem, the final answer is a single decimal answer. On test, they leave this. And the directions say round to the nearest hundredth on the test. This one, whatever the decimal is. So remember, the numerator is divided by the denominator. So when I punch this in, I'm going to punch in. The numerator goes first. That's 7.0. Now technically you don't have to put the 0.0. 7.0, and then I'm hit divide, and then the 11.2. So 7.0, I divide 11.2. And I get, now, make sure you see this, 0.625. Here's a really nice habit to get. I need to read your problem correctly. And when people do this, they write that decimal so lightly, I can't tell where the decimal is. What helps is if you write it in the ones place, there's nothing in the ones place. So when you see the review sheet, I'll usually put 0.625. You don't have to, but it's a nice little placeholder to let whoever's reading your work know there's nothing here, and that's where my decimal begins. It's just, to help people when you communicate what you have. Especially when we did online and people had to like take pictures of the test. I'm trying to read whatever they scanned in, it comes up, too light. Just make sure it looks like some on the homework. We're going to type in 1.625. On the test, it said round to the nearest hundredth. You can't round to the hundredth unless you know what's in the thousand. So if I round this, because that's a 5, the 2 rounds up to a 3. And it would be 0.63 if this was a quiz or test question. But you would need to know what's in the thousands place if you're rounding to the hundredth place. All right. 2 things. First of all, I got hit roll. Second thing, I have a little take-home project for you. Take-home quiz. And what it is this is what we're going to do as our warm-up on Tuesday, because it is just like the quiz you're going to take at the end of the day on Tuesday. And this is something you can use as notes, because all quizzes are open note. It's just like the 2 warm-ups we've already done. So let me take roll. And what I'll do is I'll stand at the door and hand them out to you as you ready to goes out. Sarah?
Here.
Alan Cameron? Kyle Dioring? Here. Clarissa Smart? Anna? Diego? Perlina? Nani? Brianna? Luis Gutierrez? Julie Gutierrez?
Yes.
Lilia? Juliana? Tony?
Yes.
Skylar? Elizabeth? Lennis?
Yes.
Monica? Kylie? Leticia? I'll meet you at the door. Have questions, stick around. Thank you.